Okay, let's get started on the intro. First of all, what is an intro? Well, intro is just short for introduction. The intro is just the start of the song. So what's the purpose of the intro? Well, it's to kind of introduce the song in sometimes a gentle way, sometimes a fast way, and set the tone or set the mood for the rest of the song. So an intro usually starts simple and then gradually builds until we reach kind of the climax or the main loop, the full loop we've created. So we're going to take elements from this main loop that we have and only take a couple of them and slowly add in other elements as it goes along until eventually we're at the whole thing, and then we can break it back down into simple elements again. So we start to create this contour of being simple, raising up to the full main loop and breaking back down again. So let's get started with that. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this duplicate I have here. Now, if you have duplicates that have other melodies on them, then what you'll want to do is move them over. So what I'll do is zoom out. I'm going to grab everything. Well, in my case, I'm going to delete this stuff first. If you have stuff here, don't delete it. Now, I'm going to grab everything. In case you don't know, in order to grab everything, we push Command or Control A. So Command A, I get everything all at once. I'm going to move this out a little bit, maybe say to bar 16, so that we have some working room. Now I want to introduce a concept here, which is that music generally works in groups of 2, 4, 8, 16. In general, it's multiples of 4. So 2 being, we can go half of 4. 4 is usually the standard length of time that something repeats for, but it can be 8 times, 16 times, 32 times. This concept of groups of 4 is important in modern music because we have a natural sense of the progression of 4 repetitions changing. Now, you absolutely do not need to stick to that, but it is good when you're learning to stick to it because you get a sense of what's been done before, so you know in the future how to bend the rules and maybe how to change it to be how you want. So we're going to build our intro here in groups of 4 bars. That's why I moved this over to bar 16 for now, was just because 16 is 4 4s, and that may give us enough time to build something up till we get to our main loop. I may have to move this out further as we go. We'll just see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a listen to my loop. And I'm listening to identify some part that could work as my intro, and I'm thinking that these chords on my electric piano will be good. So I'm going to take these. Now, you see what I've done here? Remember I split it and I did this one in reverse? I want to like kind of glue these together so they're one piece again. So the way I do that is I click on this event, I hold Shift. Shift lets you add other events to the selection, and I click on this event, and now I have both selected. Now I can right click and I can come down to Event, and inside Event we have Merge Events. Now you can see the command for that is G. When I push that, see what happened here? Now we have the event consolidated in a single event. This little chain icon means that there's 2 linked events inside, and we can go in and edit those. When I double click, it opens up this editor, which we haven't really looked at yet, but in case you need to, it is there. But for our purposes, we have this linked event, and we're going to duplicate it. So I'm going to duplicate it in this case by holding Alt and dragging it over. I'm going to drag it back to bar 1. Let's see how this sounds on its own. I think that sounds really nice. So I think what I'll do is just duplicate it. Now I did hear a little pop on the end there actually. That little pop. Remember how we get rid of that is by fading. So this thing is not going to let me fade right now because it's a linked event, a grouped event. So if I come down here, now I'm in my little editor, I'm just going to put a tiny fade on the end of this, and I can close this. Right. So now I'm going to duplicate this because whatever element comes in first is probably going to continue on. Like as each new element gets added, all the previous ones continue until we end up with the full loop. So I push D and I've got a duplicate of the event now, so it goes twice. Now the second time it comes around, I need to add something in. And this is an important concept, which is being aware of the sense of boredom or the interest level in the song. You don't want to just let a part run on just to make the song longer. You need to add something or change it in some way or the listener is going to get bored. Just think about it in your own experience. Do you get bored when you listen to some songs, when they repeat too much? Everybody does. So what you can do is always go back to the beginning and play your song from the start and listen and see. If I was somebody just listening to this and it wasn't my own song, would I be bored by now? Does somebody need to change? So when I listen to this first part, because we never heard the chords before, it's totally fine to listen to the whole chord loop before we hear the duplicate, because we're taking in all the new sound and we're wanting to know what's happening in the song. But if I were to repeat it again with no change at all, that would be pretty boring. So now I need to go grab another element from my main loop and add it in over here. So let's see what I'm going to grab. I think what I may do is try out these guitars. So let's bring this over. And now I'll play from the beginning to see how that feels. I like that. Now, just like in the main loop, I'm going to duplicate it and put it right here so it goes twice. Okay, now I'm going to grab all these and duplicate them, and we'll add in another element here. Maybe this time it could be these little bells. So hold Alt and drag them over. Make sure they line up properly. Now we get this. My bells are still too loud, I can hear, so let's just turn them down a little bit. Now remember, when we get to the mixing stage, which is going to be after our arranging stage, we're going to learn about reverb, and reverb on these bells is going to sound a lot better, but I'm fine with them sounding like this for now. I know that when I go and put the reverb on them, it's going to make the song sound even way better. Okay, I've just listened from the beginning, and my feeling is that when these bells come in, it's a little bit boring. There's not enough that's changing yet, so I'm going to add something else in. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to Browse, over to Loops, come down to Lydian Loops Volume 2, and I'm going to go to the separated drums. Now, if we check out the drum beat I had here, I'll just solo it. We can see I'm on Kit 5, number 3. So I'm going to come down here to Kit 5, and then I want just the hi-hats. So Kit 5, hats, number 3. That's the one I'm using, number 3. So I can grab this and drag them up. And now I have just the hi-hats. Let's listen to that. I like that. It feels like more is happening now. So I've got 3 sets of 4 bars now. I've got just the electric piano going, the electric piano with the guitar, then the electric piano with the guitar, with the bells and the hi-hats coming in. And I've just realized that I mistakenly put my loop over at bar 16 when it should be at bar 17, because the end of the 4th bar will be the end of bar 16, not the beginning of it. So I'm just going to come down and grab everything. Now if I want to grab everything here, I don't want to have my range selector. I come down to the bottom half of a track, so I get just the cursor like this, click, drag, and put everything in that selection and pull it over. I'm going to pull it over 1 bar, and now we're in the proper place. And I can move my loop over too. So now I've got room for this last section of my intro here. So what I'll do is copy everything over, push the D key, but now I've got something that's repeating twice. So this is going to be a little bit too boring to hear this going into this. So I'm going to need to change something up for this. So let's think about that. All right, so I thought about it a little bit, and what feels right to me is that I'm going to take these hi-hats, and for the last 2 bars, I'm going to cut them out. So I'll just drag it back like this. And I'm also going to take out the guitar for the last bit and the bells. So now I get this. So that's kind of a nice way to get into a big section, is to start building, 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 and then the last moment, thin it way out. So it's just like 1 element or 2 maybe, and then everything comes in all together. Now, you notice that we haven't heard the bass at all yet. I didn't put any bass in the intro. That doesn't mean you shouldn't. You can definitely do that. But in this case, I thought it was a good idea to leave the bass out the whole time, and the bass comes in when the full loop comes in. And I'm even considering moving the melody over and having the full loop go without the melody once or twice, and then the melody coming in. So we'll try that out as well. All right, so there's something else I want to do here. When I listen to this last couple bars, I like the second last chord. I'd like it to just stay on that chord instead of changing to the very last one. If you check it out, this one, not that one. So in order to do that kind of editing, I need to actually commit to the merging that I've done here. Remember, I have this little link icon here. That means that in this view, when I'm moving around my events, the 2 parts I had appear to be merged. The 2 events appear to be merged. But if I double click and come down and look at it, I can see I actually have 2 parts here still. And this is just kind of a container that's making it look like it's 1 part. In order to do this kind of editing in a efficient manner, I need to actually commit to those 2 parts becoming 1. So to do that, I right click on the event, and I come down to event, and I go to bounce selection. Bouncing just means to write a new file, to create a new file. So now I'm not going to have 2 separate files, I'm going to have 1 file that is a new event, a new audio clip that is the 2 old events merged together completely, so you won't be able to separate them. So if I go bounce selection, now if I double click, I don't have 2 parts anymore, I just have a single part. Now that's good because I can edit the fades on it. If you see, when I have these linked clips, I can't edit the fades, I can't edit the volume at the top of them. So once I've bounced them, now I can edit all these parameters and I can do what I'm looking to do. So what I'm going to do is come in here, and right at this bar line, I'm going to make a chop. Oops, that didn't work. Make a chop here, and I'm going to make a chop here. Get rid of this last stuff, and I'm going to duplicate this little bit like this, so we hear this now. And you notice that it's popping and clicking like that, and to get rid of that we need to crossfade, and that is why I bounced this part, this event, because without bouncing it I couldn't do the fades. So if I grab this, and I grab these 4 little things I've got here, actually this first one doesn't matter, all I need is this and these ones, and I push X. X is crossfade, X like a cross. Now I get fades, and the transition is smooth between them. So what I did there was, I initially had the 2 events, the main chords, and then the reversed one. I took the 2 together and I merged them, which gave me this little link icon, which just means that the 2 events are appearing as one, but they're actually still separate. Then I wanted to edit them. I wanted to do these little cuts, so I had to bounce that merged event to get a single new file. So I went to the merged event, I right click, and I went event, bounce selection. You can also push Command B or Control B. Then I got this thing that I could edit, and I duplicated the little last bit, and I crossfaded by selecting them and pushing X. So now, playing from bar 13, Okay, so my intro is looking pretty good. I have a pretty steady build up going on, and then it's coming into the full loop. And like I said, I'm probably going to select all this stuff and have the melody not come in quite yet. So I'll duplicate it and delete the melody from this one, and then it will just come into the beat without the melody. And then as it comes around, the melody will come in here. And that gives a little more interest. The last thing I'm going to do for this intro right now is to try and increase the impact of when this comes in. So when we have a big part that comes up, it's good to try and make that part feel even bigger and more important. So in order to do that, we do things like I did here, where I took away a bunch of instruments so it gets even quieter right before that part, so that when it all comes in, it feels even bigger. But there's other things we can do too, because if we look here in the effects section, I have some interesting things. A burst, which we used earlier, this kind of 8-bit sounding burst, some impacts, but what I'm looking for are these sweeps. And I really just want the short sweep. And the sweeps are there for transitions, going from one part to another part. So from the intro to the main loop, or the main loop back into the breakdown section we're going to work on later. So I'm going to grab this and drag it in maybe just down here for now and see how it sounds. Probably going to be too loud at first, so let's turn it down. So that's pretty cool. So the loop up here with the drums actually starts with a sweep down. So this sweep fades perfectly into it. And that'll be my intro for now. I may go back and adjust some things later, but it's feeling good. I introduced the chords, which is the main emotion, the main feeling of the song. I brought in another element, brought in 2 more elements, and right before the chorus or before the main loop came in, I dropped out those extra elements, made a little bit of an adjustment to my main one, to the chords, to add some interest, brought this sweep in here to kind of lift things up even more, and then the beat comes in and everything drops in all at once and it feels good. I moved the melody over to get kind of an extension on my main loop, so one time without the melody, one time with the melody, and after this I'll probably be getting into a breakdown section where I simplify things again. But that's it for the intro. So have fun with that, and I'll see you in the next one.